noted that you say you think capital controls on Greece could begin by the end of the year.
Well, I think so. I mean, I was just about, say, a couple of weeks ago, I thought probably there would be some sort of deal reached, but actually things have deteriorated in my view. Neither side seems to be able to find a common ground on the details of bringing about conditionalities that both accept in order to get this extension of the agreement and get the funding through. And it's clear that the Greek government, by rolling up the IMF repayments from the beginning of this month to the end of the month, has given itself a little bit more time to come to a deal, but also it was a manoeuvre to basically say to the creditors, the institutions in Brussels, that they're not prepared to go much further than they are now in meeting the conditions that the EU institutions have asked for. So if they're not, there may be no deal at all. And I think the time is running out. The next 18th of June meeting for the EU summit, I think, is a crucial date, because there needs to be time for both the German Parliament, the Greek Parliament, some other parliaments to agree any deal. And the German Parliament goes on holiday in July. So there's a real possibility that Greece is going to run out of money, which would mean that then it would have to go towards capital controls to stop the flow of funds out of the country.
But the bundling of payments, the four payments that are being bundled together to the IMF and that are being paid later on this month, I mean,
well, maybe they'll be paid.
Maybe, yes. It buys a bit of time. Isn't it okay if a deal is reached, even if it is a bit delayed? I mean,
sure. If a deal is reached, it doesn't matter if it's delayed. The time is running out to make that deal happen. It has to be approved by a certain number of parliaments. They need time to do that. So if you go back from that, then you've really got to get some agreement on the conditions, probably within the next 10 days. Otherwise, I think we're in a position where you could go into default, you could have capital controls, then you'd have maybe 30 days grace as the IMF doesn't get paid, or we're in this situation where maybe there could be a deal during July. There are more payments, large payments, that the Greek government is supposed to make towards to the ECB in July, and there clearly is not enough funds to do that unless a deal is reached. So we could go into a sort of semi-crisis situation in July, which may bring about a deal. Sometimes that concentrates minds, or you could slip into a complete mess.
So given the ECB's support to Europe via quantitative easing, if that's seen as a positive, and given that the economic data, I'd say, is slightly more on the recovery side versus the non-recovery side, are those two items going to outweigh the potential of a Greek default? I mean, in other words, is Europe really going to care if Greece doesn't make a couple of payments?
I think that over the longer term, the Eurozone and Europe could survive a Greek or exit from the Eurozone, because it's only 3% of Eurozone GDP. It's not decisive in terms of trade and investment. Most of the credit institutions, private sector, are out of Greece. But the whole mess is a really bad hit towards the image of the euro and the Eurozone in general. It means that countries can reverse out of it in a mess, and it means that they'll be worried about whether they can ever do agreements in the future if they have these situations. Bob,